this video, I want to talk about paying a dividend. In an earlier chapter, when we paid a dividend, we simply debited retained earnings and credited cash. And that's essentially true. That's what happens in the big picture. But now I want to get more detailed. I want to show you the difference between a cash dividend and a stock dividend. And I want to show you that there are three important dates related to dividends. The first important date is the date of declaration. This is the date when the board of directors meets and actually somebody makes a motion, another person seconds that motion, they discuss, they vote, and the motion passes. And the motion was to declare and pay a dividend. And after that motion passes, then the accountant can make this journal entry. They can debit cash dividends and they can credit dividends payable. Now, they're debiting cash dividends. That's the trend in the textbooks, but I've seen other textbooks in the old days where they just simply debited retained earnings instead of debiting cash dividends, because ultimately cash dividends is an equity account that is being debited, and that will be closed to retained earnings at some point. So for now, we can debit the contra equity cash dividends, or we could debit retained earnings either way. Now, to whom will we pay this dividend? There's another date that we have to clarify, and that would be the date of record. And at the end of the day, when the market closes, on the date of record, whoever is the last owner of the day, that those people, those investors will make the list. And people on that list will be paid the dividend on the next important date, the date of payment. So the date of payment is when the cash will actually be dispersed. Now let's look at a stock dividend. We're going to debit stock dividends, which ultimately will be moved to be a debit in retained earnings. But instead of crediting cash or dividends payable, we're not going to be paying cash. We're going to be giving stock. So let's assume this is a small stock dividend. We will debit stock dividends for the market price of that stock. We will debit stock dividends for the number of shares that we're going to give times the market price in the moment. We're going to credit stock dividends distributable. Now that's a weird count. That is an account very similar to common stock, but since the common stock technically has not been given to anyone yet, it's kind of like a liability in that we plan to distribute it, and yet since it's not cash, we don't call it a payable. So this weird account exists sometimes for a short period of time. It's an equity account with a credit balance. It represents stock that we're going to give, but we haven't given out yet. And we always credit the common stock for the par value. And the difference between the market value and the par value is plugged to this excess paid in capital hyphen common stock account. We will also have a date of record, which means that at the end of the day, when the stock market closes, we have to create a list of who owned the stock so that we can give them more. And in this example, we're giving a 3% stock dividend, which is 30,000 new shares. Now, if you think about it, this is a lot like a stock split in that there's not going to be any wealth created here. All you're going to do is like have a pizza that you cut into smaller pieces. You'll have 3% more slices of pizza, but you won't have any larger of a company. You won't have any more assets, more employees. Nothing's changed except the number of shares. And so you would expect the price of one of these shares to go down on the day after the date of record. Now, the date after the date of record is called the ex-dividends date. And it's an important date to know for investors because an investor would prefer to buy a stock usually the day before or the day of the date of record instead of buying it on the day after the date of record.